watching the weekend edition of the Urban Debate with me, Aarti Subramaniam. As India's COVID case count begins to ebb, several states have now begun unlocking with an emphasis on reopening schools. Barring Delhi, the metro cities of Mumbai, Pune, Bengaluru and Chennai have already reopened or have announced the date of reopening. While Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister and Education Minister Manish Sisodia has announced his support for reopening, a decision on this has been delayed yet again. While COVID has been devastating on economic activities across the board, the academic and social repercussions it has had on children and their education is one that will have a lasting impact for the foreseeable future. With more and more health experts advocating for a full return to school, is it time to reopen schools in Delhi as well, or is it better to adopt a wait-and-watch policy? And if you're a parent or a student in any other metro that has already reopened, what are the risks and rewards to consider? Well, to discuss that, we have Aparajita, who is the president of Delhi Parents Association, Dr. Colonel Dr Dhall, the HOD Cardiology of Janakpuri Super Speciality Hospital, and Deepa, Kumar, educationist, who is also with us. Thank you so much for speaking to me this evening. I really appreciate you joining us. Doctor, let me just begin with you. Dr. Dhall, if I can start with you. There is this policy that we have adopted, and of course, there is no rule book when it comes to COVID because it's so fluid. But we've seen schools starting, shutting, starting again. Is it become a bit of an ad hoc process, and is there an alternative to that?
I really don't know, because there is no prescribed way by which anybody could have planned how the pandemic would play out. And because children had not been vaccinated for safety concerns in the first round of vaccination, so it is pretty obvious, and there would be some precautionary measures which schools would be kept shut for a little longer. But I just think it's a matter of a few hours to days when schools would be open and life would approach normalcy yet once again. So I just don't think that it's not really a major issue at this point in time, because the last surge which we had with the Omicron variant is likely to have conferred a little larger amounts of herd immunity, and by which the confidence would increase. Of course, we don't want to have a situation where children and teachers all come together in schools and get infected. But my concern always has been that I find that Indian school students are much easier to discipline than the populations at large, who may actually and would adhere to rules and guidelines if given out to them. So they would probably observe COVID-appropriate behavior much better than what the lay public tends to do. So I just think that it's a matter of that we would have schools reopening.
Well, that's actually a very, very interesting perspective. Aparajita, let me take you to this now. Is it possible, though, that it's the parents who have far more apprehensions and the children are really looking forward to actually going to school, meeting their friends? Because at the end of the day, there's also a huge social impact that it is going to have on the children. This is something that we cannot measure. Like when we talk about economic losses, it's a quantifiable data. But when it comes to children and how this has impacted their childhood, I'm sure they're also more likely to want to go to school now, and the parents probably are a little more reluctant than them.
See, अगर मैं आपको ground reality बताऊं, still parents they are not ready to send their kids. अभी भी आज की डेट में भी जो हम डेटा देख रहे हैं, हमें ये पता है डेटा के जो पैरामीटर्स हैं वो चेंज कर दिए गए हैं, और हम सब जानते हैं आजकल बहुत सारे जो टेस्ट हैं लोग घर में ही कर रहे हैं. तो जो डेटा आ रहा है उसके हिसाब से नहीं चल सकते, बट यस हमें डेथ को देखना चाहिए. अब मैं आती हूँ उन बात पे जहाँ पे पेरेंट्स कंसर्न करते हैं. आज अगर हम 15 से अबव एज की बात करें, हम स्कूलों की बात ना करें, वी शुड स्टार्ट विद कॉलेजेस. सबसे पहले कॉलेजेस को ओपन करना चाहिए जिनके कब के वैक्सीनेशन हो चुके हैं. अगर मैं स्कूल की बात करूं तो 15 और 18 का जिनका वैक्सीनेशन ऑलरेडी स्टार्ट हो चुका है 3 जनवरी ऑनवर्ड्स, उन बच्चों के स्कूल ओपन करने की यस गवर्नमेंट सोच सकती है. क्यों? क्योंकि 10th और 12th के बच्चों का दोनों का प्री बोर्ड एग्जाम्स जो होते हैं और उनके जो प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम्स होते हैं उनका देना उनको लिए जरूरी हो जाता है, जिसके मार्क्स जुड़ते हैं. बट 15 की एज के नीचे के हम कहेंगे अभी स्कूलों को खोलने की कोई जल्दी नहीं करनी चाहिए. उसके पीछे मैं आपको लॉजिक दे देती हूँ, क्योंकि फेब अभी बच्चों के फाइनल एग्जाम शुरू हो जाएंगे। तो यहाँ पे ये है, जिन बच्चों ने सारे साल ऑनलाइन पढ़ा है तो आप उनके एग्जाम भी ऑनलाइन लेके खत्म कीजिए, क्योंकि फाइनल एग्जाम है, मात्र 4 या 5 दिन जाना होगा। मैं आपको अभी एग्जांपल बताना चाहूंगी, क्योंकि ऑलरेडी दिल्ली में भी शुरू हो चुका है स्कूल खुलने का। हमारे पास कंप्लेंट्स आ रही है, स्कूल मैसेज कर रहे हैं पेरेंट्स को, नो वैक्सीनेशन नो एग्जाम। मैं आपके चैनल के माध्यम से इसको इसलिए कहना चाहती हूँ, जबकि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने मेंशन किया है कि वैक्सीनेशन मैंडेटरी नहीं है। अब आप ये देखिए, स्कूल वाले किसी भी हालत में बच्चों को अपने पास बुलाना चाहते हैं और इस बात की एक तरह से धमकी दी जा रही है। तो आप जो सोशल और मेंटल की बात कर रहे थे, आप मुझे बताइए, जो स्कूल मैनेजमेंट्स की अगर मैं बात कर रही हूँ, वो किस बेस पे बच्चों को या मैसेज कर रहे हैं पेरेंट्स को इस टाइप की धमकी। तो हम फिर कहेंगे, वी आर नॉट अगेंस्ट द ओपनिंग ऑफ स्कूल, बट यस, 10th और 12th के जो बच्चे हैं, जिनको प्री बोर्ड्स देना है, जिनको एग्जाम, अपने प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम्स देने हैं, आप उन बच्चों को बुलाइए। बट लास्ट में मैं ये कहना चाहूंगी, एटलीस्ट समबडी शुड टेक द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट को दे देती है, सौंप देती है, और डिपार्टमेंट स्कूल के ऊपर डाल देते हैं। कोई बच्चों की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेने को तैयार नहीं हो रहा, तो आप रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लीजिए, हम भी पेरेंट्स भेजने को तैयार हो जाएंगे अपने बच्चों को।
Okay, you've made your point very forcefully, and I understand, of course, several parents will have concerns. Deepa, Kumar, I want to come to you, but just bear with me for a minute, because I want to go to Dr. Dhall, who's, as a doctor, as an expert opinion, is the staggered approach to opening schools, as Aparajita was recommending, is that the way to go about it, or can we be a little less cautious?
I think the staggered approach makes a lot of sense, and we can adopt that. But at the same time, one must forget that in many countries in Europe, there has been a full reopening. And the impact of what has happened after the Omicron surge has been that a lot of people would be, probably have, the herd itself would have more immunity to be able to handle this. So, and really it's just a matter of a few days. So I'm not really sure whether it's enough reason for us to, raise an issue, because at best it's going to be for a couple of weeks, and then the schools are again going to close for exams or whatever there is. So I don't think it's so much of a big issue.
Okay, Deepa, Kumar, what's your take on schools reopening? We've waited this long. Should we wait another month or so again? Or is it time now to embrace the fact that we're going to have to learn to live with COVID?
Well, in my opinion, education is now have got really impacted, and there is an education crisis in the country. Let me tell you up front. I was listening to the doctor, and I think I agree to what he's saying, because the cost of school closure on students' learning is devastating. We are not at this point understanding this point. Yes, as parents, as community, we have to carefully tread forward. I'm not saying that we have to go berserk and just start opening schools, start calling nursery children. We have to slowly prepare ourselves, and we have to, because what has happened is, during this 2 years' time, children, their anxieties have risen. Some of them are causing self-harm. There is a learning gap in many students. Children who are more vulnerable have got affected more. In some of the state schools, even it has had an impact on their diet as well, because they used to get midday meals. And some of the children have also got exposed to domestic violence as well. However, now today, UNICEF, WHO, everybody is encouraging the governments to mull over it, to think over it, and allow the schools to reopen and give normal environment to our children, because it is going to, you will see the impact 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. And when it comes to responsibility, I don't think it has to be shouldered by any one body. I think we all have to come together and shoulder this responsibility. Follow the protocols, listen to the doctors and the enlightened people. Of course, see the data, and slowly, as you see, Europe has opened up, Japan is opening, Singapore is opening, some of the African nations have begun to open because they are realizing that this 2 years have created havoc for the students. And I'm sure all of us would want our students to learn, enjoy, lead a normal life. And yes, safety first. I'm not saying that. But let's not harm them more by just keeping them inside. They're all attending parties. I see so many children walking with their parents in the malls. I see wherein the government is saying keep the children at home. But is anyone listening? I see children attending wedding parties. So where is the Omicron and Delta then? So I would strongly encourage everyone to support the government, be in this journey with them so that our children can get the normal life back soon, and the learning journey should not get impacted more, especially the formative years. Especially the formative years.
Okay, Deepa, I think that's a great point that you made. And as I started off saying, you know, the quantifiable data is never going to be available on how it has really affected the children, especially in the long run, including their social skills, their mental health. I just have a small request. We're having a little problem with your line. We'll just try and reconnect with you. But I wanted to, in the interim, also just go to Aparajita. I think, Aparajita, data says that Delhi schools were shut for about 85 weeks. That's almost 19 months. Now, you said who's going to take the responsibility? Do you agree with what Deepa Kumar said, that it is everybody's responsibility? As she was saying, children are not sitting at home like they were during the first lockdown. Everyone's going out, everyone's going to malls, to gardens. So is there a different approach now when it's coming to schools?
यस थैंक यू आरती। आरती देखिए, दिल्ली की अगर हम बात करते हैं, आपने 85 वीक्स की बात बोली, ये ठीक नहीं है, ये करेक्ट इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि जब सितंबर में खोलने की बात आई या नवंबर में दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट ने खोला, उसके बाद आपको भी पता है दिल्ली में एक पोल्यूशन एक अपने आप में बहुत बड़ा इशू है, और उसके बाद अभी विंटर हॉलीडेज चली गई हैं। तो अगर दिल्ली के पैरामीटर्स को देखते हैं, या बहुत सारी चीजें आ जाती हैं जिसमें पोल्यूशन भी रीजन रहा स्कूल बंद करने का, आपको पता है वो भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बीच में एक जो कोर्ट दिया था। अब रही बात स्कूलों से ओपन की, जो अभी जो प्रिंसिपल मैम ने बोला, मैं कुछ चीजें मैं इसमें ऐड करना चाहूंगी। हर बार डिबेट्स में बच्चों के मॉल या फंक्शंस की बात करते हैं। आप हमें बताइए, जो बच्चे 2 साल से घर में बैठे हैं, अगर कभी साल में एक बार या महीने में एक बार कभी घर से बाहर भेज दिया, उसका इतना बड़ा इशू क्यों बनाया जा रहा है? स्कूल भेजना और मॉल भेजना, प्लीज समझिए, आप लोग, आप पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, समझिए दोनों अलग चीजें हैं। मॉल जब बच्चा जा रहा है, छोटा बच्चा जा रहा है, अपने मदर फादर की, अपने पेरेंट्स की निगरानी में रहता है। इट इज नॉट लाइक स्कूल। दूसरा, स्कूल में जाना कंपल्सरी है, मॉल में जाना कंपल्सरी नहीं है, शादी में जाना इट्स नॉट कंपल्सरी। आई डू एग्री, बच्चे जा रहे होंगे, थोड़ा सा चेंज, बिहेवियर चेंज के लिए वो बाहर भी जाना बंद कर देंगे क्या? दूसरी इन्होंने बात की मिड डे मील की, जो बहुत अच्छी बात की इन्होंने। यहाँ पर मैं आपको बता देती हूँ, मिड डे मील पहुंचाने की जिम्मेवारी किसकी थी? वो गवर्नमेंट्स की थी। मैं आपको बता देती हूँ, आप ही के चैनल में प्रोग्राम हुआ था प्रज्ञता गाइडलाइंस का। बार बार हम कहते हैं, आज पूरे 1.5 साल हो चुके हैं। 19 जुलाई 2021 को प्रज्ञता गाइडलाइंस पास हुई थी। क्यों गवर्नमेंट ने रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं ली घर घर तक एजुकेशन पहुंचाने की? किसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थी? आप सबके टीवी चैनल है, टीवी चैनल के माध्यम से पढ़ाइए, रेडियो के माध्यम से पढ़ाइए, क्योंकि डिजिटल डिवाइड के चलते जो बच्चे पढ़ नहीं पा रहे, उन तक शिक्षा तो पहुंचाइए। प्रॉब्लम ये है, हमारे यहाँ पे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कोई नहीं लेना चाहता, बस पास द पार्सल के वाला गेम खेल रहे हैं हर कोई, और वो एक दूसरे पर टालने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। मेरा बस यही कहना है, पेरेंट सबसे ज्यादा सफर कर रहे हैं। हम ही एक कैटेगरी हैं जो बच्चे हमारे, हम पेरेंट्स सबसे ज्यादा सफर कर रहे हैं, और मिडिल क्लास, खासकर जो प्राइवेट स्कूल में पढ़ा रहा है, उसकी सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम ये है, वो स्कूल को पूरी फीस दे रहा है, फिर भी एजुकेशन की क्वालिटी नहीं मिल रही है। और एक बड़ी बात है, जो स्कूल कहते हैं खोलना है, वो आप देखेंगे 99% प्राइवेट स्कूल वाले बोलेंगे स्कूल खोलें। आप ये देखिए, ये वही प्राइवेट स्कूल है जो 2 साल से कह रहे हैं कि हम बहुत अच्छी ऑनलाइन शिक्षा दे रहे हैं। भाई, आप एक चीज डिसाइड कर लीजिए, या तो बोलिए हम ऑनलाइन शिक्षा अच्छी दे रही है इसलिए हम पूरी फीस लेंगे, या साफ साफ बोलिए हम ऑनलाइन शिक्षा में फेल हो चुके हैं इसलिए हम स्कूल खोलना चाहते हैं। लास्ट बट नॉट लीस्ट, जब हम बच्चे की बात करते हैं, मैं आपको बता देती हूँ, होम स्कूलिंग फॉरेन कंट्रीज में बहुत नॉर्मल है, और बॉम्बे में इसको लीगलाइज किया जा चुका है। आज जिस तरीके से हिसाब किताब चल रहा है, ट्रस्ट मी, डाउन द लाइन 1-2 साल में बहुत जगह पे, बहुत सारे स्टेट्स में होम स्कूलिंग भी लीगलाइज हो जाएगा। बॉम्बे में, महाराष्ट्र में ऑलरेडी वो गवर्नमेंट ने उसको अप्रूव कर रखा है।
Okay, Aparajita, let me just divide what you have said into medical and social and the implications of both, because I understand, like you said, that when it comes to India, we have our own set of unique challenges compared to other countries, and it might not be a direct apple-to-apple comparison. Let me start with you, Dr. Dhall. In terms of the inoculation that we've had for the 15 to 18 category, we have about, I think, 60% who have taken at least one dose. Medically, could we say that we are beyond the threshold where it is relatively safe to send students to schools?
Actually, nobody knows, because the actual figures on how much protective benefit there is in this has not been completely delineated by any studies. That we'll only learn in retrospect. However, it appears to be a good starting point. But like I said, we are all making issues and points where actually none exist. The situation is improving. In another few weeks, we would have the prevalence rates, they come down. Once that happens, be much safer. So you also have to see that there would be a large amounts of asymptomatic transmission which may have happened. So when we talked about a positivity of 30-35%, which was in, say, in metros like Delhi or Mumbai just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we do believe that this would have also resulted in a large number of children who would have received an inoculum, whether inadvertently, and they would also be having the benefit of the herd immunity. So really, I'm not sure whether we can think that one dose in 50 to 60% is enough. I don't think there is enough data to support that. But because the positivity in the population is going down, I think it is reasonable, and we will see in the coming few days to maximum a couple of weeks, we would see a fair amount of normalization. However, this normalization is like everybody knows the school patterns. So there'll be exams, and then there'll be vacations, and so on and so forth. So I think there has been a lot of development even among the schools in trying to bridge the digital divide and to get education down to school kids. I know it's not easy in a country like ours, but these were not easy circumstances. And I think we've made a reasonable effort. And let's hope that the worst is beyond us, and the worst is past, and that we look for better days ahead.
Deepa, Kumar.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead, Deepa.
I'm really happy to hear the doctor giving such positive hope to all of us. And somewhere down the line, I agree that we don't have any specific data with us, but this is not about middle class or elite class. This is about a virus. A virus is here to stay. And there are protocols we all will still have to follow. And as an educationist, I strongly say and feel again that the learning gaps are increasing, and we must look into it. I'm a parent also and a grandparent also, and I know even I have kids at home. I'm not siding any school. The fact is that there are many schools and many school-going children who don't have any kind of devices. What about them? I can tell you with conviction that out of 3 children, 1 child may not have a device, or the connectivity is not good. So they are all losing this time of their lives. However, I don't say that risk your lives. I don't say we have to think logically. We have to take the necessary support and give support. So I strongly recommend that slowly we should encourage schools to reopen, whether it is a government school, whether it is a private school. For me, education is important. For me, to observe children losing this time is very important. The formative years, that means from the time the child is born till 8 years of years, education plays. Whatever the child learns, what the child sees, experiences is very important, which some of the children are losing. They've lost these 2 years. There are children who have not been to the not attended the early childhood program. What about those? So it has impacted education as a whole. And I strongly recommend everyone, the parent support group, the medical fraternity, and educationists to come and lay down the protocols, carefully create forums, and work together so that our children are educated well.
Okay, Aparajita, I just one final question to you before we begin to wrap up. There is no mandatory attendance in schools. Is that an acceptable solution then? Because then we leave it up to the parent and the child in consultation with perhaps their doctor and their relatives.
No. I don't think, because government has given us clear guidelines. You cannot force a child to come to school. That is why schools are running both the programs simultaneously. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That if a parent feels that the child needs to attend school from home, that's fine. That's fine. Let the parent gain that confidence. Let the parent gain that time. Let the community again come back together and feel that, all right, it's all right to send my child to school. And government is not forcing it. Government is saying you can run the online classes as well open the schools. That's what the government is encouraging.
Yeah. So, Aparajita, do you think that's a fair compromise then when it becomes a subjective decision? It's not like the school can force anybody to come. It's not like the government can force anybody to come.
Yeah. So
Aparajita, let's just Aparajita answer that, Deepa. Then we'll come back to you.
Sure.
Yeah. आरती, प्रॉब्लम ये है कि गवर्नमेंट जो ऑर्डर निकालती है उसमें हाइब्रिड लर्निंग की बात हम लोग करते हैं, बट प्रैक्टिकल क्या हो रहा है? प्रॉब्लम यहाँ पर है, क्यों पेरेंट्स इतने ज्यादा रिजिड हो रहे हैं, क्यों वो कह रहे हैं हम बच्चों को नहीं भेजे? बिकॉज हमने देखा है कि आज गवर्नमेंट अनाउंस कर दे कल से स्कूल ऑनलाइन क्लासेस जो है वो बंद कर देती हैं। उनको साफ साफ इंटीमेशन आ जाता है कि आप बच्चे को स्कूल भेजेंगे तभी आपकी क्लास चलेगी। और लेट मी टेल यू वन थिंग, दिल्ली का नामी एक स्कूल है जिसने लास्ट टाइम तो मैसेजेस भेजे थे बच्चों को बुलाने के लिए, वो ऑफर दे रहे थे, आप आएंगे स्कूल में आएंगे 10% एक्स्ट्रा यू विल गेट मार्क्स। ऐसे ऑफर बच्चों को दिए जा रहे थे। यहाँ पे मैं इसलिए कह रही हूँ बार बार, स्कूल्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लें। एक बात, दूसरी बात है, जब गवर्नमेंट ऑर्डर निकाल रही है, हाइब्रिड की बात कर रही है, लेट्स से बीइंग अ मदर, मैं अपने बच्चे को भेजना चाहती हूँ और आप अपने बच्चे को नहीं भेजना चाहते, तो आपके बच्चे के लिए ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन होनी चाहिए, बट ये नहीं होता। अब हफ्ते में 2 दिन अगर बच्चे को बुला रहे हैं और लेट्स से मेरा बच्चा उस दिन नहीं जाता, तो ट्रस्ट मी उस दिन मेरे बच्चे की एक तरह से छुट्टी है, यानी कि हफ्ते में 5 दिन की जगह मेरा बच्चा मात्र 3 दिन या 2 दिन पढ़ेगा। तो ये कहाँ का लॉजिक है? बहुत सारी चीजें ना किताबों में देखने में, ऑर्डर में देखने में बड़ी अच्छी लगती हैं, बट ग्राउंड रियलिटी कोसों दूर होती है। तो यही एक डर है जिसकी वजह से पेरेंट्स रिजिड हो रहे हैं। यही एक डर है, बार बार हम शो में आके अपनी डिमांड कर रहे हैं कि रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लें, स्कूल्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लें। अभी जैसे प्रिंसिपल मैम ने बोला कि ग्रुप बनाए, एक साथ आए। प्रॉब्लम यही है कि पेरेंट्स को जो स्कूल है एक बैरिकेड लगा के रखता है, पेरेंट्स को अपने साथ आने नहीं देता है। यहां से प्रॉब्लम शुरू होती है। जब आप पेरेंट्स को कॉन्फिडेंस में लेते हैं, प्रेशर नहीं कीजिए। हो क्या रहा है, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, दिल्ली में मैसेज आने शुरू हो गए हैं, नो वैक्सीनेशन नो एग्जाम। आप मुझे बताइए, 15 से 18 साल के बच्चे, 9 से 12 के बच्चे के पास, किसी के पास ये जाएगा नो वैक्सीनेशन नो एग्जाम, और बच्चे को कुछ मेडिकल कंडीशन है। कार्डियोलॉजिस्ट हमारे साथ हैं, डॉक्टर ढल, आप उनसे पूछिएगा कोविड के बाद लोगों को कितनी प्रॉब्लम हुई है, हार्ट की मैक्सिमम प्रॉब्लम हो रही है। ऐसे बच्चों की कौन रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ले लेगा स्कूल? तो यहाँ पे अगेन वी आर नॉट डिनाइंग, हम लोग अगेंस्ट नहीं है स्कूलों को खोलने के लिए, बट हम ये कहते हैं somebody should take the responsibility. We don't mind to send our kids.
Okay, let's leave the final word with the Dr. Dhall. For the parents who are still wondering whether or not they should send their children, to the parents who, are still on the fence about that, and I don't mean to put all the pressure on you on this one, but if there is some advice that you could like to give them, if there are some precautions that they would like to take, what would your advice to them be?
Just observe COVID-appropriate behavior. The children of our country are very responsible. We actually underrate their responsibility. If we teach them, I think they will perform much better than many adults who couldn't be bothered. But the children themselves, if they are cautioned, they will wear masks, they will observe distancing, they will washing, they will observe COVID-appropriate behavior. And I think with God being kind and the virus being kind and our herd immunity improving and our vaccination status improving, we will head towards better times.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to Mirror Now this evening. It's not an easy decision to make if you're a parent, whether you have to send your child to a college or a school after a long period. Information on COVID is so fluid. We're learning every day as we go by. There are new variants, there are new studies. Everything is in a fluid situation. But what we can do, what is within our control, is to maintain COVID-appropriate behavior, wear a mask as much as possible, and consult the experts. Let the experts have a final word on whether it is safe or not to actually go to schools. But also, of course, the long term, the impact that COVID has had on the education of the child, on their social and mental development, is a conversation that we must continue to have. With that, it's a wrap here from me on The Urban Debate. Thanks so much for watching.